Want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
Hey.
Why this beat so crazy?
We will make America proud again. And you try to kill our We will make America wealthy again. And yes, together, we will make America great again.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy. We got a bombshell in this one. Ah, hell. The hell with NBC News, though. The hell with Democrats. The hell with politicians. The hell with the court. The hell with the lower court. The hell with the judge. I think they ought to be walked out, fired, sued, impeached. People ought to be walked out with their hands behind their back. You know, but this administration, we just keep winning. Oh, there's been wins stacking up everywhere. And, hey, it just doesn't stop. There's bombshells every single minute, it feels like. You know, we do not know what to expect next. You know, prayers for America. But these judges, boy, oh boy. These judges, I tell you. Oh, this thing gets spicy and spicy every single day, man. I hope everybody that's tuned in right now that you are blessed, well, and healthy. That you're having a great weekend. That you had a great week. You know what I'm saying? Hope you got a smile on your face and that you're in good spirits. Well, let's go and get into this one. The hell with NBC, the fake news media, the enemy of the people.
NBC News exclusive on the beef between the Supreme Court and some federal judges. In very rare interviews, 10 of them tell our Lawrence Hurley they're frustrated with the Supreme Court for overturning rulings that went against...
The hell with the lower court. The hell with you. Yeah. We just keep winning. We just keep winning.
The White House with little or no explanation. One judge even alleging that the Supreme Court, which of course includes 3 Trump nominees, is throwing them under the bus. Another says the high court is trying to make it look like the lower courts are biased against the president, telling us it is inexcusable. They don't have our backs. And the big picture here, the Supreme Court has granted the Trump administration requests to block lower court rulings in more than 70% of its emergency cases brought by the administration. NBC News has reached out to Chief Justice John Roberts, who declined to comment. Lawrence is joining us now. And let's just say, like, we don't often hear from, literally 2 handfuls, like almost a dozen federal judges in one place. Talk to us about this. What did they tell you? How did you even start some of these discussions with these judges?
Well, I think, first of all, it's an unusual time, right? These judges are getting a lot of personal threats because of the rulings against the Trump administration. There's very harsh criticism of their rulings coming from the president himself, but also his allies on social media and so on. And so they're operating under a lot of pressure, and I think that has changed the mood a little bit within the judiciary. I think maybe they're a little more open to speaking out. And so that's what happened here. One of the judges even said, you know, somebody's going to get killed, you know, because that's how concerned they are. They're concerned about answering the door when someone knocks on the door, all these kind of things. So, you know, and there's been an evidence of a rise in threats against judges, and they're concerned that the Supreme Court's actions are kind of serving to kind of validate these concerns or the criticisms, because the court is overturning
Judges increasingly targeted with violent threats. Oh boy.
The criticisms, because the court is overturning these decisions without any comment.
But so that's an important piece of it here. It's not just that they're it sounds like from the interviews you had, it's not just that they're overturning some of these decisions. It's that they're not really explaining why. They're not providing a rationale. That seems to be underpinning so much of the frustration.
Right. And so then when say the president goes on social media or one of his advisors and criticizes judges for a judicial coup or something like that, you know, and the Supreme Court's overturning these decisions without any comment, it can serve to kind of, you know, make people think, well, maybe the Trump people have a point.
Big picture, there's also been an erosion in public trust in the federal judiciary over the course of the last however many years, right?
Yeah, and I think you can see these divisions exposed in the judiciary between, lower court judges and the Supreme Court, and even within the Supreme Court. And these divisions, reflect the divisions that we see in the country as a whole. And, people aren't used to the judiciary being like this, but it basically is.
Has there always been tension between the lower court judges and the Supreme Court, like just in any appeals court, just because of the nature of what they do, that some rulings are going to end up overturned and judges wouldn't like it?
Judges know that there's a chance that any ruling they do might get overturned by the Supreme Court, and the judges I talked to said they know that, right?
Right.
This isn't
That's part of the deal.
This isn't what they're complaining about. They're complaining about how they're doing it, and the external noise that's coming from the Trump administration and their allies.
It's also been an interesting look, just real quick here, the Trump administration looking to get some of these high-profile cases to the Supreme Court after taking some losses legally, some legal setbacks. It seems like there's a fair amount of Trump policies that are going to end up in front of the highest court.
Yeah, the Trump administration is really using executive power very aggressively and trying to push things through, and they're bringing up these cases very quickly up to the Supreme Court, and they've had a series of big wins on things like birthright citizenship and trying to fire federal workers, firing members of independent agencies, and all these other things that are coming up to the Supreme Court very swiftly and being the subject of the...
I definitely want to get into this. Let me read some of these comments. Fire all these judges. They are compromised, corrupted. Fire them all, sue them all. All biased judges should be removed. If a judge was at the oath of office, the judge should be tossed. Wish we had a strong Republican Party in Congress. These rhinos are killing us. These judges should be removed for cause. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. I pray they are taken on and no longer judges. Check this out.
Well, rogue judges have been completely out of control this week. They have been issuing order after order that
not just this week, but this week has been some crazy crap, but it's been worse weeks though, as we've covered on the channel. It's been way worse weeks. I tell you, what a disgrace. The hell with the judge. I think the judge ought to be walked out live on television. Set the robe on fire.
defies common sense, not to mention the U.S. Constitution, because nobody remembers voting for hundreds of co-presidents of the United States who wear black robes.
Man.
But these rogue judges, well, they ran tattling about the Supreme Court. They went to NBC News, of all places, and they published an anonymous opinion editorial of sorts.
They really think they outranked the president, like real life. They think they outranked the president. Then what the hell was the point of an election? The people spoke loud and clear. I don't know how many times I got to say it. I think I've said it about 1 million times in the last 3, 4, 5 months. The people spoke loud and clear.
Saying the Supreme Court, they're being so mean by slapping down their insane rulings. Well, one of those judges, they have blown the whistle, in a sense, despite their will, and they have really given the game away on what these activist judges are up to. But before we get into this story, please, now, you might have seen the NBC News article about the dozen federal judges who really betrayed their true colors. They went to NBC News and undermined the Supreme Court of the United States simply because, well, they don't like the rulings that are coming out of the top court in the judiciary.
So we just showed.
So even with these squish conservative judges, such as John Roberts, who is very liberal in a lot of his rulings, and Amy Coney Barrett, for example, who's also squishy on a number of issues, they cannot stomach it. They think that the Supreme Court is out of line because they won't rubber stamp their crazy rulings. And I will add just one more point about this. The Biden administration broke the law in a number of ways, and they never did anything about it. They never said anything about it. They never published anonymous op-eds. They didn't issue nationwide injunctions at nearly the rate they're doing under the Trump administration. And the Biden administration, well, they were refusing to uphold immigration law. They were engaging in partisan lawfare in terms of their coordination between the Department of Justice and other agencies such as the National Archives to bring lawfare against Donald Trump because he was running in the election. In other words, election interference. And the Biden administration basically got a free pass to do whatever it wants. Well, the Trump administration has been fought tooth and nail from the very beginning on its policies that the American people voted for, gave the Trump administration a mandate to carry out. And these rogue judges, they think they know better. They cannot stand that the president has the authority to do the things that he's doing. And he's been upheld a number of times by the Supreme Court. Well, you might remember federal Judge James Boasberg. He went on the record because he advised Chief Justice John Roberts back in May that and along with 24 other judges, that his DC colleagues were, quote, concerned that the administration would disregard rulings of the federal courts and lead to a constitutional crisis, unquote. And that was according to a memo obtained exclusively by The Federalist. Now, so Judge Boasberg and his fellow DC District Court judges discussed how a named defendant in numerous pending lawsuits might respond to an adverse ruling. And it's outrageous because Judge Boasberg's comments reveal he and his colleagues hold a clear anti-Trump bias. For the Trump administration complied with every court order to date, and since, for that matter. The DC District Court judge's concern went to counter that the normal presumption that courts hold, and it presumes that public officials will properly discharge their official duties unless proven otherwise. But these judges were preempting Donald Trump and undermining him and his administration because the Trump administration did not violate these court orders, contrary to mainstream media myth. So this judge, James Boasberg, he really gave the game away. He blew the cover off these DC court judges and showed that all of these rulings that are getting overturned by the Supreme Court, they're being issued with malice aforethought. They are being issued with prejudice against the Trump administration, and they need to be removed for not acting in good behavior. So Senator John Thune, Speaker Mike Johnson, please get your act together. You are not pulling the wool over our eyes. This is a real problem, and you need to act. And John Thune, why didn't you just allow Donald Trump to make recess appointments to clear the backlog of his judiciary nominees? Like, what is wrong with you? You're not fooling us.
Man.
If you can't clear the backlog because of Democrat obstruction, well, clear the Democrat obstruction using the rules and procedures of the Senate and the House. This is not hard. And for you to...
And they're playing Uno and Goldfish. I tell you what.
Come out and gaslight us recently about this judiciary backlog. Well, it's not flying.
Throw it out in the middle of the street, too. They be throwing it out in the middle of the street.
With us at Explain America, it's not flying with the American people that I read. Nobody is fooled by this. So do your job. Back Trump's judicial nominees because they want to back the U.S. Constitution and stop interfering with the rule of law in this country. So if you have any thoughts of your own, please like, share, and comment.
I'll tell you what. You just can't make this up.